because they teach peace and well-being and respect for nature and animals and each other and nonviolence. And of course, one of the family members was a born-again Christian who saw this little thing and went into a tirade as to what was being taught here and what was being given to children. And of course the thing was, well, you know, this is Antichrist and all of this stuff, which is just insane. I mean, Buddha was a man who just was depressed by illness, sickness, hurt, and tried to do something to help people avoid it. And but when you create your own heroes in religion, then you have a person who all of the children should be listening to turns out to be an enemy. And that's an unfortunate thing. And so basically the whole family was kind of left, and you know, some serious tragedies have happened since, and you just know the way things could have been if people would drop their ego and their pride and religious pride and plug into a person such as Shakyamuni Buddha, along with the teachings of Jesus, etc. Buddha teaches a very meaningful truth which is perfectly consistent with teachings of Jesus Christ and the teachings of the Bible. And it was the foundation of his work, and it was the law of cause and effect. In other words, he said you can only realize, in other words, you can only be consumed in the higher nature when you begin to understand this word, which in Buddhism is called Renge, and means cause and effect. You can't, he said, possibly reach that divine thing that you're finding or you're searching for until you understand Renge, which is cause and effect. You can't do it. Now, this is Buddhist teaching, and you remember, if you can, that Shakyamuni Buddha was teaching 500-600 years before Jesus was born, all right? And he taught this, and that's where that philosophy originated from. And it was easily and quickly picked up by the religious of the Christian and Judeo persuasion, and you can see it in the book of Galatians. So if you have a Bible with you, and you open to page 954 if you're here, the rest of you go to Galatians in chapter 6, and you'll see it. You'll see the same thing that Buddha taught maybe 1,000 years before, and you see it turning up in the Bible here in Galatians chapter 6. And it's a famous biblical statement, and I think you have heard it before. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. That's the law of cause and effect. Call it sowing and reaping. It's the same thing. And that's Buddha. That's the Bible. The same very, very important lesson that, you know, we learn here tonight. This means, if you would, coming up with another word that has crept into your vocabulary since you've been attending here, and the word is karma. K-A-R-M-A. Karma. And karma is that aspect of your life which is a result of things that happened in the past. Somebody's lung cancer, unfortunately, may very well be the result of smoking cigarettes. So they set up a karma. Somebody's psychological problems is very much the result of family. And it can even then transcend itself off of this board back into a previous existence. Karma. What is your life now? Look at the way it was before. What is your life going to be in the future? Look at the way it is now. And that's a strong teaching. But Buddha, in talking about karma and in talking about Renge, cause and effect, says this: accepting the fact that you have made the causes of your life up to this point. Not looking to religion and not looking to the famous devil of Christianity, but looking in a mirror and said, I have made the causes for my life up to this point. So Buddha said, if you realize this, then you can begin to make new causes and a new life, but you'll never do it unless you realize that you were the one who made the causes of your life and made it the way it is up to this point. How did you react to the training? How did you react to the teaching? How did you take those things? What happened? What occurred? What did you do? Did you stay with it? Did you submit to the lunacy? Most people in the United States have submitted to absolute lunacy, which is called Christianity. Absolute lunacy, and they've made themselves into all kinds of people struggling with fears and guilt and all kinds of sick and all horrible things because they've simply accepted what the system said. We kind of looked at that today. We're having extremely cold weather. The radio said don't go out, and we looked and there was a lot of empty chairs this morning. Because as soon as the system speaks, people obey. Or they stay in. I mean, you know, I agree with you. This wasn't the kind of weather to go jogging or go for a long walk, but you could walk from your front door to the car pretty safe, you know. But no, they won't even turn the door on, won't even go near the doorknob because the system says don't do it. And basically, when the system talks about that and people respond, what else does the system talk about? And what else do they respond to? What have you responded to? What have I responded to? This is what Buddha says. If you will accept that you caused the loss, then you will understand that through meditation, you can cause the gain. Otherwise, you're going to be always looking for somebody to blame. And then, not only are you going to be looking for somebody to blame, you're going to be looking for somebody to make the replacement or to change things for you. And that person doesn't exist. Because you keep getting older, getting older, then you die, and you spent your whole life waiting for Sir Lancelot to come and make this miracle for you, and he never showed up. Just like they're waiting for Jesus to come. Everybody that has ever waited for Jesus to come has died, and he never showed up. Never showed up. They all checked out. He's coming soon. He's coming back. The second coming. They're all gone. They died. See, and he never showed up. Now, that's what the Bible means in 2 Corinthians 5:17 when it says, "Behold, old things pass away, all has become new." When it says that, it means there has been a change in the karma. You have broken the chain. We're talking about young people who get into difficult situations. I think it's a pretty good comparison. We're not going to name many names here, but you have two young people. One whose family has stayed here, and another whose family has left. And the one in jail and all kinds of thefts and drugs and all kinds of hell. The other doing fine. Really doing fine. And basically it's not because of me. It's not because... But it's because of no one is pointing a finger of guilt. Nobody is screaming that you should do this or do that or do the other thing, but allowing a person to live and allowing a person to chart that course, and also bringing into the home these things which are born out of meditation and reduce the tensions and reduce the violence and so forth. So the same things that you've more than likely experienced in your house since you started coming here. You started to experience a peace, and when you experience that peace, you pass that peace down to the kids, you pass that peace down to the animals, and so forth and so on, and the whole thing then turns out to be life as it should be. And then each person can start building their own life. But they can't start building their own life when they're trying to protect themselves from you and me. And for the most part, kids have been trying to protect themselves from you because we didn't allow them to be what they wanted to be any more than you or I were allowed to be what we wanted to be. But we fooled them anyhow. We broke the traditions, and we're doing our own thing, which is great. Okay. But Buddha talks that the old, lower, negative karma is replaced by a newer, higher, divine karma because you realize that everything comes from within you. So you're replacing the old with the new, because you realize that you have the capacity to do it. Don't you understand? In religion, in Christianity, you have no capacity to do anything except pray and keep your fingers crossed. And then hope that this thing is true when? After you die. Otherwise, it's no show. You have no chance. What chance? You come, you pay, you pray. You come, you pay, you pray, and that's all, and you hope, and then you die. And they all say, as you're laying in a box, he went or she went to heaven. But they got their fingers crossed behind because they really don't know, I hope. I hope there is such a place called heaven. I hope there is such a thing called God. I hope there is such a thing called Jesus. So they make up these stories. Nobody knows. And that's no good. You have to know. And that's what happened. You remember in our story this morning, the Spirit prompted this person, oh, you're going to be successful in this battle. So what did the guy say? Good. if I'm going to be successful, when the war starts, you come with me. If you show up, I'll show up. If you don't show up, I'm not going to show up. That's the way it's got to be. It's not going to be you having faith to do all this crazy stuff. It's you having proof, you having an experience, and you having proof that this works. So it's replacing the karma, and here's proof, because when you see it start to change in your family, you see it start to change in the way you think. You think differently. You're seeing karma change by reading the newspaper and turning to the television, by watching all these countries signing agreements and accords and peace accords that would never do this before. They're all changing the way that they think. Behold, all things have become new. What is this about? I don't know. We just don't want to fight anymore. But a couple of years ago, they'd cut your knife, cut your throat for a nickel. That's the way it is. So Buddha, you can do what Buddha says and become one who overcomes this lower karma or not. But you have to do it by overcoming the bad karma which is within. And it is not somebody else's job, it's your job. Remember this morning in the battle? Barak killed all of the other soldiers. That means he was able to take care of all the thoughts. That's you have to do that. There's no God, there's no minister, tell me, of all the times you've gone to church and you went to fundamentalist Christian churches, tell me one time that a minister, a priest, an evangelist, or whatever you want to call them, ever were able to stop the crazy thoughts in your head. Never. They're not able to do it. Nobody's able to do it. And that's what was said this morning. You've got to do it. You've got to conduct that fight, and you conduct that fight through meditation, but it's up to you to drive the thoughts out of your head. So then what's the benefit of this? Buddha tells you what the benefit of it, but what does Jesus say the benefit is? Page 1003, Revelation chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2, page 1003. And go down in Revelation chapter 2 to verse 17. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church. To him that overcomes will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written which no man knows, saying he that is able to receive it. Okay? Him that overcomes will I give to eat of the hidden manna. Overcomes what? Overcomes this insane stuff that goes through your mind. Overcomes all the thoughts, overcomes all the old fears, overcomes the guilt. But how are you going to do that? There is no church that can do it for you. This is something you've got to do. And you've got a wonderful time in this new age to do it, because the vibrations are just pounding upon the planet Earth. And as we talked about last Sunday night, when the sun reaches the horse's neck, then there's going to be a tremendous time of peace. But there's got to be somebody on this earth who knows what's going on. Somebody's got to be able to tell people what it is that's occurring, and that's where you come in. I want to share with you a true life experience of a Buddhist in Japan. This is somebody who attended the temple in Japan, was a Buddhist named Satoru Izumi. He was, Japanese. Listen to his life. I was in the depths of misery. I hated life. My mother died when I was 3. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather died when I was 20, and he left huge debts. I resented everyone and everything in the world. Why did I have to suffer such misfortune? My family always lived good, but it seemed we were always punished. And my family served as chief parishioners for the Buddhist temple and the Shinto shrine in the village. They did everything for the temple, they did everything for the shrine, but it seemed that all this simply led to was bringing the family into ruin. I developed a great cynicism about religion. Every Buddhist priest I met said he had the right truth. His place and his temple was the best temple. And so I said, how could there be so many right truths? And I gradually came to the conclusion that all I could really rely on was my own effort, and I decided to depend only on myself. I married, we had a son. My son died when he was 4 days old. I lost my child. My wife fell ill, and all the money that I had saved, I had to spend for her illness. The next year, I had a daughter born with cerebral palsy. I thought of killing the child to end her misery. I had a child with a disease pronounced incurable. I'd try anything to help her. And then a friend came to me and talked to me about a different kind of Buddhism. The kind that I never knew. Not organized, but personalized. So I sat and I listened. And that's when I ran smack into something called Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I began to chant, I began the meditation, and it began to affect changes in my life and my family. I began to share this truth with others, that within them, and not a temple made with hands, is the truth. All the misfortunes were what brought me back to understanding life. And this is the conclusion. Satoru said in his Japanese dialect, I am convinced that my mother, my grandfather, my son, and my daughter appeared in this world by design for one thing, to lead me to life, to lead me to the truth. And his attitude was a simple-minded desire to know the truth, to reach the perfection by which he could help others, to see Buddha face to face. But he said, if it hadn't been through all of those tragic circumstances, he would have never come to that point where finally he learned that the kingdom was within him. He was driven to that point by all of this tragedy. And so he said that the actors came on the stage. His mother was an actor, his grandfather was an actor, his son was an actor, his daughter was an actor, and they all appeared in this world for one reason, to push and push and push him to the point of such despair that finally he was able to listen to the truth. It's within yourself. See? So now some of those things you say are hard to understand. Difficult, but just think of what he's saying. His mother was an angel, his son was an angel, his daughter was an angel. Everybody was, there was a design that nature uses. Because, we count on this like, oh, she died so young. In truth, the person is probably 35,000 years old and ready to live again, never dying. How old? Oh, she's only 16. She's 16? 3,516 she is. 25,360. Never has that person not existed. We can't think in concepts like that. We hear churches speak of eternal life. Well, if it's eternal life, then it's eternal. It never stopped. It never began. It never ended. See, what Christianity and what religion teaches is that eternal life starts after you die. Well, then it's not eternal. Because what happened for all the billions of years since the first big bang? Where was everybody? The Apostle Paul said, for now we see through a glass darkly, but then we shall see face to face. You know what that means? Now I'm religious. I don't know what the heck this is about, but I'm trying to have faith. But then I will see face to face. I'll understand. And what did Jacob, and this you should all know sitting here, what did Jacob call the place where he finally saw God face to face? Peniel. Exactly. The pineal gland of the brain, which the ancients knew to be the precious single eye, that Jesus said you must practice in order to bring yourself to light. Because then Paul says, now I know in part, but then I shall know even as I am known, which means consciousness. So only with this new divine attitude can you be one who can overcome the lower karma. Buddha said, by giving everything to the practice of meditation and chanting, by giving everything, you gain. By losing everything, you gain. It has nothing to do with your material possessions, has nothing to do with your house, has nothing to do with your family, has to do with yourself. Giving everything is giving yourself, giving your ego, giving your personality, giving your mind, giving your consciousness in this magnificent thing called divine meditation. Meditation that is an out-of-body experience, meditation that raises you above the thoughts of the mind and places you in a nirvanic feeling that is beyond the scope of anything human. An out-of-body experience that the Apostle Paul says in a beautiful way, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Because he had an out-of-body experience. It says so in the Bible. And this is the thing that religion will tell you to be fearful of. So here it says, if you will give up everything, if you will die to the self in your meditation, you gain everything. Go with me to page 959. And it's the book of Philippians, page 959. The book of Philippians. Philippians chapter 1. In Philippians chapter 1, and verse 21 is a statement that says this, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Now, there is nothing good about dropping dead. There is nothing good about it. except that you live again. But, I mean, that's bull. I mean, he's not talking about this. He's not saying to die is a wonderful thing. You can't tell me of one person that you think they died, this is great. Oh, you can think of some murderers and some people say, yeah, this is great, they died. But, I mean, in reality speaking, to die is not a good thing. But here he says to die is gain. Say. Now, you'll hear a lot of religionists and a lot of fundamentalists talking about reincarnation. Say, oh, to die once, to die, and then the judgment. See, it's not true. Watch. Watch this. Go to page 941. You're on 959 now. Go back to 941 and see the truth of this. The Apostle Paul speaks in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And what does he say? 1 Corinthians chapter 15, look at verse 31. I protest by your rejoicing which I have in Christ Jesus our Lord, I die daily. I die daily. Every day. And basically what he was saying, he strikes down that which is his ego, he overcomes that which is the self, he then experiences this nirvana which is beyond anything that is human daily, every day. It's the most precious treasure of your life. And that's what Buddha said. Give it and you receive it in enlightenment now and throughout eternity. You don't have to have any faith in it because you experience it. We were talking about this morning. It's not a question of something you have to have faith in. It's a question of a growing experience. And that's what we do when we meditate. We constantly come forward week after week and we submit ourselves to the meditation. We take whatever times during the week and we meditate. And this is a growth. This is water touching the leaves, water touching the earth. There's a growth every day. Inch by inch by inch we grow. In Matthew 10:39, Jesus says, he that finds his life shall lose it, but he that loses his life for my sake shall find it. And that's eternal life. It's the same way for Buddha. It's the same way for Jesus Christ. So how can one give your life and yet make no sacrifice? Buddha said some may have wives and children and estates and gold or other treasures. Others have nothing at all. That is not the treasure. Both can sacrifice equally because you offer your life. And that's what Jesus was talking about. Whoever will lose his life for my sake shall gain it. And what's that all about? Because the point is most people come in to meditate to get something. It's the same way that people pray. God, give me this. As if there was some God that was depriving you of something. If you know the right people, you can get anything. If you strike it rich down the Trump Plaza, you can get anything you want. You hit the 6 numbers in the lottery, you get anything. God has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it at all. He says God is making those people win the lottery. God is making this guy win in the poker parlor down in Trump Plaza. It's ridiculous. There's no God holding anything back from anybody. Absolutely not. Everybody gets the same thing. Some people wheel and deal and weasel their way through this and con their way through this and so forth and so on. Other people, sit back and get stepped on or whatever. It's up to the individual. You have to change yourself. And you change yourself for what reason? Not to get anything, but to be part of this whole natural experience. Look, what I'm trying to say is, what is God? Is there, let's just put all the stuff I've talked about, put all of it down, and just let me ask you a question. Is there a God? Nobody knows. Nobody really knows. But you can prove it. You can prove the existence. Because what is God? God is universal intelligence, universal love, universal wisdom, universal intellect, universal goodness. God is inside of you. Fine, God is inside of a pussycat. God is inside of an ocean wave. God is inside of a tree. God is inside of a petunia. God is inside of a mountain. God is inside of a star. God is inside of the sun. God is inside of, in other words, God is inside of everything. Everything is God. And so that if God is inside of you, you start to flow inside of that whole natural essence. And then you say, God is. There is an intelligence because I'm intelligent. There is love because I can love. Your dog can love. Say. There is wisdom because I have wisdom, you have wisdom. We share with each other wisdom. There is wisdom because there is oracles of wisdom and wisdom and wisdom. This is God. But you're trying to reduce it to one person and realizing that, instead of realizing that the whole creation is God. The whole thing is God. Everything is God. It's like living in the womb. And so that's what God is. But we've tried to isolate it to some man somewhere. We actually have been raised believing that this thing called God is an old man sitting on a planet somewhere, letting you go beat each other up, drop bombs on each other, do all of these horrible things, and just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until someday he'll send his son back. And his son, who's supposed to come back, says he's not coming back. So what do you got? Jesus, you're going back. Nah. Would you come back? Would you come? A lot of you wouldn't even go to Newark anymore, let alone come back here. I ain't going back. But why don't we understand? Why is it so hard to understand? Why is it so difficult to understand that? Why can't people grow up, people mature when you start thinking about things such as what is God? You're God. The pussycat is God. The flowers are God. The trees are God. Wisdom is God. Love is God. These energies that pour forth that make you feel good, that's God. All of these things are God. It's in everything is God. And so then the point being, if I relinquish the self and I die to the self, then what is left? God. And God is alive inside of me. And that's what you're being asked for. That's what Buddha asked you for. That's what Jesus asked you for. Relinquish that which is yourself. They say, well, then I don't get anything out of this. You get everything out of it. Because then all the violence, everybody starts being God. Everybody starts being Jesus, and then the guns go down. And the violence goes down, and the competition goes down, and all the crazy business that is constructed by the societies and the systems go down. But that's the way you understand it. And that's what's trying to be said here. It's not a monetary or material gain. And yet we see all these wonderful things. What does God do? Everybody that we're praying for in this meditation, we're getting wonderful reports. Good things are happening. You can't just say, well, it's a coincidence. It's no coincidence. It happens because there's a scientific fact connected to it. All of your religion, all of your healing is done through electricity. That's how holy it is. It's electric, like they sing in the song. It's electric. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's electric. That's what it is. So, you start meditating for somebody, you start praying for somebody, and electricity goes shooting out of your head, and if enough of it finds the right place, it hits this person, bangs. Beautiful things happen. Same way that electromagnetic fields hit people. That's what it is. And all of this is understanding how to use it, but we want to make it holy. What do we do? What did we do? We create organs. We created organs for what? To play and make people morbid. What has this got to do with a guy in sandals and a mountain somewhere? What is that with an organ? And then we have 50 people with candles coming down already with costumes on. And everybody's singing and big things with glass and bells are ringing. Instead of understanding it's electric. It's electricity. It's nature. Get out of that big mausoleum. Go out into the forest, out to where nature is. That's God. You and God are together in nature. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's the beautiful way to understand. And then you understand, if God is nature, then if I abandon myself and I then go into nature and flow, then God is together. Everything is God. The way, I guess the best way is the old Edgar Cayce trick. Go out and pretend you have no head. Take it off. Take your head off. Because everything that you have is contained inside of this round ball on top of your shoulders. Your whole world is inside of here. Everything. Everything is in there. Spooky things, nice things, sexy things, all crazy things are inside of this bag that is on top of your head. Blown up, it's a balloon on top of your head. So everything is. Now pretend you have no head. Now what? Here you are. You're everything. See, it's a thin bit of mess that keeps you in here from everything that's out there. And once you get out of this, you're part of everything. You're part of the whole. You're part of the air, you're part of the sky, you're part of everything. Do it sometime. Go to the beach or whenever the weather gets nice and pretend you have no head. Remember you did it, you became a seagull. And I said, good, let's fly home. We can save a lot of money, huh? You're in Florida? Well, why take the plane? We'll just fly. But it really works. It's an amazing thing. Just pretend you have a board right over here, no head. And now here you are. You're everything. That's what God is. And that's what you want to become part of. So basically, that's what you're doing. Like Casey said, when you meditate, you're taking your head off because you're eliminating the thoughts. You're taking the thoughts away. Because the thoughts are what keep you from nature. Inside of this is the craziest, machine ever devised. All the crazy things that are going on inside it. You don't even tell. You don't tell your closest lover, friend, whatever, all the crazy things that are going on. You sit with all of this stuff going on in your drama. Even when you're talking to people. People are talking to you, and they never have an idea that inside of here, there's a meeting going on, a conference is going on in here with all these crazy friends you have inside of your here. Nobody knows that. You're sitting looking at me like you're paying attention. Ha, you're crazy. I know better than that. Listen to her laugh. Who have you been to? She's having a conference back there. And you're all having conference. That's the way it is. I understand that. I went to a conference some time ago with a magnificent, what is Rich, psychologist named Rich Petrino. I would love someday to have, maybe I'll do, geez, I wonder if he'd do that. I'd love Rich to come down and maybe do a 2-day seminar or a 1-day seminar. God, he's great. He teaches people how to think, how to exist, practical ways in dealing with responsibilities to others and so forth and so on. He does it for corporations and so forth. And he teaches the ideas of being within yourself something extremely special that is known only to you. And you then, judging somebody else who's looking at you, but you have no idea what it is that's going on inside of them. See? And so when you start realizing that, for instance, as he says, you want to be a salesperson, he's talking about, whether you want to be a salesperson, you want to be able to deal with the public as a policeman, you want to be able to deal with the public. You have to go and you have to find out that everything is located in these circles. And right down, you take it to the middle. Oh, out here you might have your personality. In here you might have your thoughts. Back here you might have your ego. But down in the center is you. And unless you change the way this thing is moving down in the center, you're never going to change the way it's moving on the outside. If you make the hole too big, then the whole thing's going to be lopsided. If you make it too small, it's not going to fit on the spindle. But it all comes from the center, and it all revolves around changing that which is the center, and that's what Buddha's talking about. That's what Jesus is talking about. That's what the Bible is talking about. That's what we've talked about. Change the center. Change the center. So, Jesus Christ said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, in other words, if you just will try, not to believe anything, but if you will just have a little bit of patience with it and a little bit of time and just try, then he said you can make mountains disappear. And the mountains are the things that, keep us from the peace that we seek, to keep the children from the peace that we seek. But I don't seek peace anymore. You don't seek peace because it has to be a universal cosmic change. That's what I seek, and I hope that I seek to be unified with that which is the cosmic God, whatever it is, nature, call it whatever it is, to be a part of it, and let it come and change the whole thing. Let it bring down all of the traditional things. Now, of course, there's going to be, as they say in the Bible, a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth and all of that kind of stuff, because a lot of people aren't going to like that. But that's what's going to happen, and that's good, because what's gone on up to this point has not been good. What has to be done? You have to give. You have to give something. Let me show you. You have yourself, and you wonder why things aren't going right. Good. You have here this which is the center of your life, which is your 10%, your carnal mind, and you live here. You focus everything here. You are active here constantly. All of your living, the 90% over here, you don't know. You go into churches, they operate out of here. In fact, they warn you to stay away from here. This is the unknown. Stay away from here. You'll open your mind to this. And they call it demons and devils and all of this stuff. Stay in here with us. Okay. Now, I want to show you something. Show you where the trouble comes from. Go to page 773. The rest of you go to the book of it's called Malachi. It's just towards the end of the Old Testament. In fact, if you go to the book of Matthew and then go into the Old Testament, it's the next book. It's the last book in the Old Testament, okay? And if you look at Malachi, page 773, chapter 3 and verse 10, okay? Okay. What does it say? Bring all... Well, let's go to verse 8. Will a man rob God? yet you have robbed me. But you say, where have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and prove me now, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, there shall be not room enough to receive it. People have been bringing 10% of their income into the churches for 2,000 years, and many of them have gone bankrupt. We've had people come to this church who gave faithfully 10% of their wages and wound up in bankruptcy. Because they knew sooner or later God was going to come through. No, he's not, because you're stupid. That's what Buddha said. There are three things that are wrong: fear, guilt, and stupidity. Why would you give 10% of your money to anybody? For what? You know? And then if you look and you explore and you look and see what this is all about, the Apostle Paul has a whole section of the Bible, it's Hebrews chapter 7, against tithing money. And we covered that. So what's it say? Bring your tithes. This is it. The 10%. Bring that. Give that. Give that. And then you'll be poured out a blessing that you won't be able to contain, because once you give this, the left side, it opens up the right side. That's tithing. But it's been prostituted in a way that people that could stick their hands in people's pockets and say, give me 10% of your money, and everything's going to be okay. Well, it's not going to be okay, because you're going to go broke. How long has this church been operating here? In this building, it's about 5 years? Okay. Many of you, okay. Tell me a time when anybody has asked you for a dime. Pass a basket. Was anybody ever said to you, you got to give 10 cents? Nobody knows what you give, how much you give. Nobody's ever said a word. Because we're not here to exploit people. We like to pay the bills. If we can't pay the bills, we all got to sneak up the back door and out the back and don't tell Vito where we went. And that's the end of it. Nobody ever will, as long as I'm here. Nobody ever will ask you for a dime. Because we either do it or we don't. If we don't, then we don't. It's that simple. It's over. We had a good show. We had a good run, long run. Everything went good. Everybody enjoyed it. Now, turn out the lights. As Willie Nelson said, the party's over. What's the end of it? And tomorrow starts the same old thing again. But that's your tithing. That's what's required of you. The 10%, which is the left side of your brain. You give that, and then there'll be a blessing poured out of you. But keep your wallet in your pants or whatever you do. You know. So that's it. Buddha says it is all contained in our attitude, living moment by moment with a wholehearted spirit of offering yourself. Give yourself. But what he did come against, there was one thing that Shakyamuni came against, and he got very ticked off at, and that was people who were against meditating for any long periods of time. He was very upset with that, because what he said, it is highly likely that we begrudge the practice or any practice for which we cannot see an immediate short-term reward. We don't want to do it. I knew people who come in here and they'll meditate one night, a half hour. And if they didn't get the new car or something didn't go the way they wanted to go, then it's got to be a fraud. Buddha said that the practice must be an ongoing part of life, and in return, it will affect all aspects of our life for the better. Hare Krishna said the same thing. Jesus Christ said the same thing. So that's where we're left at. The point of the cause. What is the cause? What causes are you making? If you're meditating, you're making terrific causes. We've had two people with very serious operations over the last couple of months or a few months. Al Cruz had a triple bypass, and I think 3 days after he got out of the hospital, he was out shopping and doing all this stuff. Kathy Gill had a major surgery with her gallbladder removed, and Joe Hall came over to the house the other night. It was a day after she was out of the hospital, and she's sitting having dinner, and he couldn't believe it. Meditation has a tremendous effect on you physically. You need doctors. You need medication. You have to do it. Those things are necessary. Somebody's got to repair the physical part. But if you're into this meditation, it has a tremendous healing effect and a resurgence to bring you back onto your feet after the tissue damage has been repaired. So it's extremely important. So this is something you have to ask yourself. And this is, I think, was the most profound statement that Buddha ever made. What is your life like now? Well, whatever it's like now, it's because of the way that it has been in the past. You've just acted out the karma. What's it going to be like in the future? It depends how you're changing it or letting it go. What kind of causes are you making now? Those will be the effects in the future. What kind of causes did you make in the past? They came back to haunt you or they did good. It depends. Those are the effects that you've had to pay now. So that's where we're at. And Shakyamuni teaches us, and hopefully we listen and we understand that we're not to be fearful. Jesus Christ never, ever, 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 ever asked you to follow him, to pray for him, to idolize him, to ask him for things. He wanted one thing. He wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet and be special, because he said you had the capacity with it. That's why he was killed. He was killed because he said, you don't have to stand in a church, you don't have to kneel in a church, you don't have to sing the church songs. What you have to do is stand on your own 2 feet and realize you are extremely special, you're extremely wonderful, you have everything contained within you to reach the kingdom of God and then some, and to bring millions of people with you. If you'll only trust that and trust yourself, and not be led down the primrose path by preachers and religion, but instead be led into that holy place which is the temple deep within your own spirit. And that's where you'll make a new cause, and the cause will be called divine meditation, practicing the single eye. And it will have a new effect, and the effect will be, it will change your life and make you part of universal nature, so that you can flow in the harmony with nature, that you can flow in the harmony with your family, you can flow in a harmony with all life. You can flow mostly in a harmony with yourself. That's the new effect that will come from the new cause. Thank you very much for being with us, and we'll see you down the road somewhere, wherever. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.